Hi and Assalamualaikum to Miss Jamhimra and to my fellow friends. My name is Sarah Shafia binti Muhammad Najib. I will present about the introduction of new economic policy. The new economic policy in Malaysia was introduced in 1971 following the May 13, 1969 incidents which highlighted serious economic and social inequalities among different ethnic groups. At that time, wealth and economic activities were largely divided along ethnic line, with the Bumiputra community experiencing higher levels of poverty compared to others. Under the leadership of Tun Abdul Razak Hussein, the new economic policy was launched as part of the second Malaysia Plan 1971 till 1975. The policy focused on two main goals, which is the first was to reduce poverty for all Malaysians, regardless of race, by increasing income level and creating more job opportunities. And the second, the goal was to restructure society so that economic roles were no longer associated with specific ethnic group. Between 1971 and 1990, the new economic policy introduced several important strategies. This included affirmative action policies, education and employment quotas, rural development programs, and support to increase Bumiputra participation in business and industry. As a result, poverty rate in Malaysia decreased, and a large middle class began to emerge. However, some economic inequalities still continue. After 1990, the new economic policy officially ended, but its principles were continued through new policies such as the National Development Policy and the National Vision Policy. These later policies maintain the focus on equality while also placing greater importance on economic growth, industrialization, and global competitiveness.
My name is Achira Mufika binti Azri, and I will present the three main objectives of the new economic policy along with the strategy used to achieve them. So I will be started with the first objective, which is to reduce poverty and improve the standards of living of all citizens by ensuring equal access to economic opportunities. This objective was introduced because poverty was seen as one of the main causes of social dissatisfactions and economic imbalance in Malaysia. In the past, there was a significant gap between rural and urban populations. People living in rural areas often face limited access to basic infrastructure, education, employment opportunities, and stable of income. These situations created inequality and slowed down overall national development. Therefore, the government recognized that reducing poverty was not only important for economic growth, but also maintaining social stability and unity among citizens. This objective focused on ensuring that poor households are not left behind, but instead are included in the country's development process and are able to benefit equally from economic progress. To achieve this objective, the government introduced various initiatives, and one of the most important being rural development and land resettlement programs through the Federal Land Development Authority, or known as FELDA. FELDA was established to assist poor rural families, particularly Malays, by providing them with land ownership, proper housing, agricultural training, and financial support. Through the program, families were relocated to newly developed areas where they could start a new life with better opportunities. These families were mainly involved in cash crop farming, especially oil palm and rubber, which are high-demand commodities. With proper guidance and support, they were able to generate stable and consistent income over time. This not only improved their financial conditions, but also increased their access to education, healthcare, and better living standards. As a result, this initiative has successfully transformed many poor rural households into stable income earners. Many families were able to break the cycles of poverty and achieve a better quality of life. Thus can be clearly seen in states such as Pahang and Johor, where many Felda settlements have developed into well-established and economically active communities. Felda also contributed to reducing income inequality between rural and urban areas, which helped create a more balanced and inclusive economic development in Malaysia. Therefore, Felda has played a significant role in reducing rural poverty and improving living standards by ensuring that economic opportunities are shared more equally among citizens. This shows how government interventions can effectively address social and economic issues in a developing country. Next, the second objective of NEP is to strengthen national unity by reducing racial inequality and promoting cooperation among all ethnic groups. This objective is very important in Malaysian context because Malaysia is a multi-ethnic country made up of Malays, Chinese, and Indians, and also other minority groups. Social unity is essential as it forms the foundations of political stability, economic growth, and long-term national development. Unity among this ethnic group was quite weak. This was mainly due to the colonial policy during the British era, where it was different ethnic groups were separated based on economic goals and areas of settlement. For example, Malays were mainly involved in agriculture in rural areas, Chinese in mining and business in towns, and Indians in plantation sectors. As a result, there was a very limited interactions between these communities. Situations eventually contributed to serious tensions, including the tragic 30 May 1969, which is a racial conflict. Following this event, the government realized the urgent need to strengthen national unity and rebuild trust among citizens. To address this issue, one key strategy introduced was the implementation of the Rukun Negara as a national ideology. Rukun Negara was established to promote unity, mutual respect, and a shared national identity among Malaysians. It consists of important principles such as belief in God, loyalty to the king and country, upholding the constitutions, the rule of law, and the good behavior and morality. These principles are not just symbolic but are actively practiced in daily life. For example, in schools, students recite the Rukun Negara during assemblies, which helps instill values of unity, respect, and patriotism from a young age. It also emphasizes in government institutions and public programs to ensure that all citizens understand and practice these shared values. As a result, the Rukun Negara has played an important role in strengthening national harmony and reducing racial tensions over time. Moreover, the government also introduced affirmative actions policy and institutional support mechanisms to reduce economic inequality between ethnic groups. For instance, Majlis Amanah Raya, or known as MARA, provided education, training, and financial assistance to Bumi Putra communities. Through these efforts, more opportunities are created for skill development, entrepreneurships, and economic participation. Government also implemented quotas in public universities, employment in the public sector, and business licensing. These measures were designed to ensure a more balanced representation of different ethnic groups in various sectors of society. Of this strategy is to close the economic gap between ethnic groups. When economic inequality is reduced, it helps to build a stronger sense of fairness, cooperation, and shared identity among citizens. Over time, this effort has shown positive results. There has been an increase in Bumi Putra participations in higher education, skill jobs, and home ownership. Thus, strengthening national unity is not only about promoting harmony, but also about ensuring fairness and equal opportunities for all ethnic groups. Through initiatives like the Rukun Negara and affirmative actions policy, Malaysia has made significant progress in building a more united and stable society. Finally, the third objective, which is to restructure society by eliminating the identifications of race according to economic functions. Similar to the second objective, this objective was introduced as a response to the colonial economic system where different ethnic groups were assigned specific economic roles. These separations lead to situations where certain races became closely associated with particular type of jobs or levels of income and reinforcing inequality in society. To address this issue, the government aimed to restructure society so that the economy activities would no longer be linked to race and all citizens would have equal opportunities to participate in different sectors of the economy. As a result, the number of Bumiputra professionals has increased significantly. Many UiTM graduates have successfully built careers in both the public and private sectors as well as in entrepreneurships. This has helped reduce economic disparities between ethnic groups and encourage more balanced participations across different economic sectors. And also introduce wage redistributions and industrial participation strategies to further support this objective. One major initiative was the target of achieving 30% Bumiputra equity ownerships in the corporate sector. To support this goal, the government established investments into institutions such as Permodalan Nasional Berhad (PNB). Unit trust schemes like Amanah Saham, PNB enables Bumiputra individuals to collectively invest in corporate assets. This approach allows wider participations in wage ownerships and helps bridge the economic gap between different groups. These initiatives have contributed to shaping a more inclusive and diversified economic structures in Malaysia, where the opportunities are no longer defined by race. Thus, this objective is essential in promoting equality and fairness in society. Through improvement in education and strategic economic policies, Malaysia has made meaningful progress in restructuring its society towards a more balanced and inclusive future.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Dalili Balkis binti Rafian Hazizan, and I want to explain about the new economic policy problems. There are three main problems that faced by NEP, which are high poverty rate, economic imbalance, and also economic inequality between races. So I will explain about the first problem first, which is a high poverty rate. Before the introduction of the new economic policy (NEP) in 1971, Malaysia faced a significantly high poverty rate, especially in rural areas where the majority of the Malay population live. So, according to Economic Planning Unit (EPU), more than 50% of the population was estimated to be living in poverty. So, this situation continued in 1960s, where rural poverty remained very high, which is around 58% to 60%. This is approximately 2/3 of Malay households living in poverty. So, this also highlights a significant gap in their income level and also living condition. So, their income level at this time is very low because the economy is still dependent on traditional agriculture, such as farming and also fishing. In 1970, according to the Economic Planning Unit (EPU), the overall poverty rate in Malaysia remained high at 49.3%. So at this time, a large proportion of those affected were farmers and also fishermen who were living below the poverty rate. So, move to the second problem, which is economic imbalance. Economic imbalance refers to the unequal distribution of economic activities, resources, and overall development within a country. It's reflected through disparities in employment sector, geographic region, income level, and economic ownership. This situation exists between urban and rural area, and also modern and traditional sector. During the period of 1957 to the 1960s, Malaysia's economy was still largely dependent on agriculture, particularly in rural areas. According to Hirschman 1979, people living in urban areas had better access to education, job, and higher income. Moreover, referring to Economic Planning Unit (EPU), in 1970, rural households earned only 200 ringgit per month, while urban households earned 428 ringgit per month. This highlights a clear urban-rural development and income gap. Lastly, the third problem is economic inequality between races. Economic inequality between races refers to differences in income, job, and wealth among different races. This was shaped during British colonial rule through a division of labor based on ethnicity. During the colonial period, Malays were mainly placed in a rural agriculture with low income. Chinese were involved in business and trade with higher earning, while Indians were in plantation with low wages. From 1957 to the 1960s, this colonial economic pattern mostly continued even after independence. By the 1960s, this situation led to unequal income distribution and limited opportunities. As a result, economic gaps between ethnic groups become wider. So, in 1970, the inequality was even more obvious. According to the EPU, Bumiputra ownership of corporation equity in 1970 was only about 2.4%, while the majority was controlled by non-Bumiputra and foreign interests. These economic and social disparities contributed to rising tension between ethnic groups that led to the May 13 incident in 1969. That's all from me, so I will pass to the NET presenter.
Hi, my name is Nur Afana binti Muhammad Faizalisto, and now I would like to explain about the strength of new economic policy. One of the main strengths of new economic policy is it is success in reducing poverty. Before the NEP was introduced in 1971, poverty was a serious issue, especially in rural areas. Many people were living in poor conditions and had limited access to basic necessities such as proper housing, education, healthcare, and stable sources of income. To address the issue, the government implemented various development programs under the NEP. These included rural development issues, land schemes, and efforts to increase access to education and employment opportunities. As a result, more people were able to improve their skills, find better jobs, and earn higher incomes. This gradually helped to uplift low-income groups and reduce the gap between different communities. According to Quem Sundaram 2024, the effectiveness of the NEP can be clearly seen through the significant decline in poverty rates over time. For example, the poverty rates decreased from about 49% in 1970 to around 17% by 1990. This shows the policy play an important role in improving economic conditions and providing better opportunities for many Malaysians. In addition, the NEP also helped improve living conditions by expanding access to basic infrastructure such as roads, schools, and healthcare facilities, especially in rural areas. This not only made daily life easier, but also allow people to participate more actively in the economy. Overall, the NEP can be considered successful in terms of poverty reduction, as it helped many Malaysians achieve a better quality of life and contributed to country's overall development.
My name is Amira and I will continue with the next slide. Objective number 3 and problem number 3 are closely related, and the strength of this objective is that it successfully addressed. Before the introduction of the new economic policy (NEP), Malaysia's socio-economic structure was highly unequal due to the British divide and rule system. For example, Malays were mainly in agriculture and fishing. Meanwhile, Chinese dominated in trade and business, and Indians worked in plantations. This created a strong link between ethnicity and occupation, leading to income inequality, limited social mobility, and a gap between rural and urban areas. Many Bumiputra also had limited access to education, capital, and better job opportunities. After NEP was introduced, the government aimed to reduce this imbalance by restructuring society and reducing the link between race and economic roles. All ethnic groups were encouraged to participate in different sectors, which helped reduce inequality and improve national unity. Bumiputra participation in business and professional sectors also increased, that making the economy more balanced. Besides, in education, before NEP, Bumiputra had limited access to higher education, especially in rural areas. After NEP, opportunities increased through institutions such as Madrasah Amanah Rakyat, MARA, and University Technology MARA UITM, which helped produce more skilled graduates and improve social mobility. In terms of wealth, before NEP, Bumiputra owned very little corporate equity. After NEP, policies like the 30% equity target and support from Pemodalan Nasional Berhad (PNB) increased Bumiputra ownership in business and investment, that reducing the wealth gap. So, the conclusion is NEP helped reduce inequality and created a more inclusive and balanced economy in Malaysia.
About the weaknesses is the sectoral imbalance in wages and productivity. According to the Ministry of Economy Malaysia, on 2023, imbalances can be seen in income, distribution, employment, and control of economic activities. This difference create inequality in the labour market. Workers in agriculture are more likely to have low income, unstable jobs, and fewer opportunities to improve their earning compared to workers in industry. Then the research by Golin, Lagakos, and Wolf on 2014 shows that productivity in non-agricultural sector can be several times higher than in agriculture, which explain why wages are much higher in those sectors. This imbalance also affects society. Rural areas often have less access to quality education and healthcare, which slow down skill development. As a result, people in this area have fewer chances to move into higher paying jobs, limiting social mobility. According to the World Bank, on 2021, this gap between rural and urban area contributes to ongoing inequality and slower development. In Malaysia, this issue was clear during the new economic policy, where rural agricultural communities earn less than those in urban industrial sectors. So this made it harder for people in rural areas to improve their living standards.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Shafiq Ikram, and let me guide you to the next section, which is the recommendations. Industrialization. Government also introduced industrialization as a main strategy to solve sectoral imbalance between agriculture and more productive sectors, such as manufacturing and services. The evidence is government promoted manufacturing and export industries to the masses, establishing free trade zones (FTZ) to attract foreign investment and created more high productivity and higher paying jobs, and encouraging movement of labor from agriculture to industry.
Okay, so next, about the conclusion. To conclude about this policy, the new economic policy was generally successful in reducing poverty and improving social balance in Malaysia, although some challenges still remain. Rural development programs, especially through Federal Lands Development Authority, FELDA, help improve living standard by opening new land, resettling low-income families, giving financial support, and building basic facilities like roads, school, and electricity. At the same time, the government create more job opportunities, especially in the public sector. This helped many Bumiputra graduates get stable jobs with better income. Malaysia also focused on industrial growth by encouraging export and setting up free trade zones. This effort attract foreign investment, brought in multinational companies, and strengthened the manufacturing sector. Overall, this policy helped grow the economy, reduce poverty, and create a larger middle class. However, there are still some concerns such as relying on government support and question about fairness and efficiency. Because of this, the long-term impact of the new economic policy is still being discussed till today.